Welcome one and all to yet another juicy, sizzling, red-hot / ice-cold Kings of War battle report. This time, Goblins versus Dwarves. And now to guide you through this voyage, I am about to pop up in the corner of the screen. So prepare your eyeballs. There we go. And I have in my hand here my army list. Let's delve straight in, shall we? So this is 2,000 points in the Dominate scenario on a lovely snowy landscape with a bit of a not very snow-covered forest in the middle there. So, with it being Dominate, of course, that central forest is going to be very, very important. It's right in the middle. It takes up quite a lot of the Dominate zone. So for anyone not familiar, unit strength is what wins this game. So whichever units have the majority of their base within the Dominate zone, add their unit strength together, whoever's got the most, they are the winner. So, here is my army list, and there's the middle right there. You can see it's in the woods, mostly on my side of the table. So let's just go through my opponent's army first then, since that seems to be where we're starting. So we've got some Brock Riders here, a regiment of them with the Potion of the Caterpillar, and there is a Brock-mounted Berserker Lord right behind them as well, who's very nasty. There are two hordes of Earth Elementals and a Stone Priest as well to surge them around. Two units of Rangers there, and these are part of the formation, I believe, so that they have Elite and Stealthy, I think they might have, and they have Pathfinder and Vanguard, and they're just tooled up to the eyeballs. And they also have, I think, is Herneus hiding behind one of them? I think he is, he's in there somewhere. Over here, there is the third unit of Rangers, and all of them have the same rules. One of them has them specifically because Herneus grants them the abilities, the other ones have the formation. There's another regiment of Brocks with another mounted Brock Lord there as well. That one has Blessing of the Gods, that regiment. And over onto the Goblin side, so we have a Troll Horde. I've gone for the usual 3 Troll Hordes, Staying Stone, Chalice of Wrath, Dwarven Ale, the 3 usual items. And then you can see there's a more beast pack there. I've actually gone for 3 of those because the Goblin list seemed to do very well at the last tournament, so I'm scaling that up, but adding some things in there, trying out some different builds, trying to foresee what problems I might run into with my list, and then trying to preemptively solve those. So with Trolls, they're not as fast as certain other armies' hard-hitting units, so having more beasts in there who could potentially just throw their lives away, being nimble as well so they can get up there into position to block the enemy quite easily. So we'll see how that goes. There's a War Trombone there, of course. That isn't just a regular unit of Goblins there, though. That is Grogger's Goons, who I thought would make a very nice accompaniment to a Troll-heavy army, because they also have Regeneration 5+. They can't be wavered, and they hit on 4s. So they're a bit more expensive than regular Goblins, but I think it's worth it to get all that regeneration in one army. So we'll see how they do in this game. There's a Flaggit there, of course, with the Diadem of Dragonkind, as usual. And actually, that might not be the Diadem one there, because I've got 2. And one of them, in this list, has the Loot of Insatiable Darkness. So I think that one has the loot, actually, because he's behind Grogger's Goons, who would benefit most from that item. Then over here, we've got the other Troll Hordes. We've got a Giant, we've got the Troll Bruiser. And does he have any upgrades in this list? No, he doesn't. We've got a Mincer. Over on the right there, you can see a couple more Trombones and some more beasts. And then we've got both of the regiments of Fleabag Sniffs over there, with more beasts behind them, and the other Flaggit. That one does have the Diadem of Dragonkind. So, turn 1, and my opponent is going to go first. So what I would hope to do, on this flank, you can see that my opponent really only has those Brock Riders. So I'm hoping that all this little gun battery I've got here, with possibly the Mincer for backup, is going to be enough to just shoot them to death. And the other War Trombones are kind of within striking distance. Let's see how far away they are. Yeah, there's one there in the middle that can be sent over to that side if need be. So, turn 1, and everything's getting right up in my face. You can see the Brock Lord is hiding behind the Brock Riders, so I'm not going to be able to shoot him. And in the middle, everything's advancing up, staying out of charge range of all my units, though. They're probably not concerned about being out of charge range of the Sniffs, because they're not that much of a menace, especially with the way they're positioned to be charging into difficult terrain there, which would not be a fun time for anyone. So over on this side, you can see there's some Rangers just staring down the flank. I haven't got much positioned over on that side, because there's a fair bit of natural cover over here with the hill and the house. So I'm thinking I'll just concentrate mainly on the centre since it is dominate after all. And you can see one of those units of elementals is surged up a little bit further than normal. And what do these rangers do? Well, they start chipping away at the trolls. This is the Dwarven Ale unit, which is why I've positioned them over here, because I think they're going to get shot the most. And if they happen to become wavered from shooting, then there's a good chance they will shrug it off. The rest of the shooting, they decide to target these two units here, Grogger's Goons and the other trolls. Just a tiny bit of damage, just making a start on them. That's how it looks at the end of turn 1. So, turn 1 for the Goblins. And I've positioned these units here so that, first of all, the Flaggit can't be seen by anything. He's hiding behind one of my units. I wouldn't want, for example, the Brocklord to charge him. And I've moved everything up so it can shoot and present a little bit of an annoyance because he's not going to be able to multi-charge anything with the Brox and the Brocklord. Not that he would probably need to here. The Brox should be able to delete one of these units, but I'm fairly confident that the Sniffs would survive a charge from the Brocklord. The War Tromboner obviously explode, but there's the Mincer right behind there. And the Mincer's put itself in a position where it can't be charged either. So I know I'm going to get charged, but I'm hoping that I can shoot enough damage onto the Brox so that next turn I can then finish them off. But, as you can see, I only do 4 damage. I'd be hoping to get much closer to 10 damage. I think their nerve is somewhere around 20. So I think I could get 10 damage on them this turn. Next turn I could be looking to finish them off quite handily. But only 4 damage is a very big disappointment there. I would hope that the War Trombone would do that much on its own almost. And that's without any of the Sniffs firing yet. So, very disappointing there. In the centre, I'm using these trees for a bit of cover. The trolls as they advance towards the left. The giant is the only one of my units that I'm quite happy to be charging into the woods all the time because it's the only one that has any way to negate the effects of that. Because it has Strider, so it can make unhindered charges through any terrain. But of course, on the opposing army, there are Earth Elementals and lots of Rangers who all have Pathfinder, so they can ignore all that difficult terrain. So I'm thinking the fact that we have to fight over this centre, and I've only really got the giant who can fight unhindered in there, is not the best for me. Over on this side, I've sent the Moorbeasts forward entirely to stop the Brock Riders charging the trolls. That's their only objective. The trolls obviously being the most important unit there in my estimation. And I've moved up, I've put Grogger's Goons into charge range of the Brock Riders, and the Brock Lord is also within charge range of a few units. So I'm thinking maybe the Brock Lord would want to charge into the Trolls and the Brock Riders into Grogger's Goons, which I would be okay with, and then he could then concentrate on shooting the Moorbeasts. Really, I just don't want a double charge or just the Brocks going into those Trolls. That's my main priority there. And I've got the War Trombone down there, and I've got other Trolls you can see just poking into the bottom right there, who can threaten anyone that steams in there but doesn't finish off a unit. Okay, there's how the battlefield is looking at the end of that turn, and we're going into the Dwarf turn 2. So, the Brocks charge into the Sniffs as expected. They decide to go into this unit rather than the other one because I think it might put them out of range of the Mincer if they go into this one. And the Brock Lord decides to go into the other Sniff unit, which I'm okay with because they're inspired as well. So on average, I would hope that they would survive that. I think he has 8 attacks. So unless he does 8 wounds, or you'd expect maybe 6 wounds, I would hope that they could survive that with inspiring nearby. And of course I've got the Trombone and the Mincer there. So there's a double charge into Grogger's Goons. Now, at this point I'm thinking, maybe the Goons should have stayed within charge range of just one of these units rather than both, because they're in a bit of hot water now. So that was probably a bit lazy there, leaving them in charge range of both of those units, when I could have just put them in charge range of one. But I elected to move them that far forward. Then we've got some Rangers charging into the Moorbeasts. They're probably hoping to kill and then overrun to block in the Trolls so that I don't get any flank charges on the Brock Riders or the Brock Lord should anything go wrong there. And these ones move out of the difficult terrain and they're going to do some shooting along with Herneus and the other Rangers there. And they shoot off the Trolls on the hill. 8 damage, so I would have expected the trolls to survive that. Let me check if they were inspired here. What's around this area? Yeah, they were inspired by that flagget there, but yep, you just managed to get 9 twice on the dice to delete them. So they are toast. However, it kind of makes up for it because, well, not quite, but the Maw Beasts do get double wand, so that's quite comical. Although the fact that the trolls are dead kind of makes that almost meaningless. And Grogger's goons drop in 1 hit as well, so that poor positioning on them did them in. And over here, that's how they're looking at the end. So they've turned to face those trolls, who may still charge them, rather than just get charged first by them, which is the only other option really there. I suppose just moving into difficult terrain so that the Brock's charging in there would be hindered, but there are some really fast characters around. There's the Brock Lord who could be used to prevent a charge into difficult terrain, so sticky situation for the trolls there. Over on this side, the Sniffs are removed as a result of their fight with the Brocks there, as expected. And what happens to the other Sniffs? Well, again, they're inspired. They only take 6 damage, so that would have required a roll of 8, I think, twice. And they've managed it. So basically everything that's been touched, apart from the Maw Beast so far, everything that's been significantly touched is now dead. So that's not gone to plan, because I did way less damage than I hoped on the Brocks, and now all the units around there are dead. But I've got plenty here to join in with. See whether I can make anything happen. So it's not looking too horrendous at the moment, but it's not an ideal start. I need to kill some units in retaliation next. So turn 2 for the Goblins. So double charge on there into the Brock Riders with the Mincer and the Maw Beasts that were down there. And not enough damage to kill them, but it's a start. And the trombone is just going to have a bit of trombone action at the character there, the Brock Lord. And over here, the Giant and the Troll Bruiser decide to charge into 1 unit each. Because, really, I can't just turn to the right and join in that fight, or turn to the left and join in that fight, because there's a lot of surge action potentially here. And with them ignoring the terrain as well, either of these could end up getting flanked. So I decided I'd just have a go and just try and kill both of them. And hope to get a bit lucky and see what happens. Because obviously the Bruiser is very unlikely to kill a unit because he only has 5 attacks, but the Giant, with a bit of luck, a really lucky roll, he could potentially take out one of them. And of course there are going to be options for flank charges here, with a bit of surge behind there, because they're not perfectly aligned. Over here the Trolls do steam into the Brocks, and look at all that damage they did, that's an obscene amount, but can't quite delete them. Can't roll high enough on the nerve check, so they are sticking around, but not for long, hopefully. War Trombone, 6 damage onto the Brock Lord there. And the Maw Beasts put a little bit onto the Rangers, but they're going to die next time, no doubt. So not the best turn, nothing really killed, although was I expecting to kill anything? Probably not. The Troll Bruiser and the Giant throwing themselves in there. It could be argued it wasn't the best move, but with the surge ability, I feel like they were kind of stuck, so they just threw themselves in there while I could advance the support up there with the Trolls. Even though the Giant could potentially get flank charged with a bit of surge action now, I have got the Trolls there, and it would be a risk for those units to kind of turn their backs on the Bruiser and the Trolls, so we'll see whether they do it. And over on that side, not looking too healthy. Turn 3 for the Dwarves. So the Brock Riders into the front of the Mincer. They'll possibly make mincemeat of that, because you only need a few damage to mince up a Mincer. And the Brock Lord into the Maw Beasts will probably eat them. Over here, the 2 Elemental Hordes decide to just charge back into the unit in front of them, which is okay by me, because they're not going to achieve much there. And over here, the Trolls are countercharged in the front by the Brocks that they almost killed, and in the flank by the Rangers. The Rangers did have options. They could have also joined in the fight with the Giants, but they decided this was more important. Again, it's possible that the Trolls could have just been held back and tried to force the enemy into difficult terrain, because I think that's the Brock unit with the Blessing of the Gods, but all the other units around there would ignore the terrain anyway, apart from the wall. So it's a tricky one. Looking back, maybe they could have hung back and let the Brocks hit them first, forcing them to go into terrain, because then the Rangers wouldn't have been able to help out. But those Brocks weren't damaged at the time, as far as I can recall, so the Trolls then hitting them back definitely wouldn't have killed them in one round. Okay, then the Trombone's about to get eaten. And the Flaggit on the hill. He's taken some damage. And the more beasts are going to get killed now. There we go. The Rangers eat them and then turn to face the action. The Trolls there get killed. So everything is turning in towards the dominate zone in the middle now, and it's not going very well at all, this. So there's the Trombone dead. Giant and the Bruiser obviously don't take too much damage there. And over here, the more beasts are killed on the right, along with the Mincer. Hope you're enjoying the sound of that ice cream van outside, or ice cream truck if you're American. So I'm going to leave that in the video as well. So they are dead, looking very, very dicey over on that side, but the Trombone and the Diadem of Dragonkind wielding Flaggit there can potentially kill both of those units. Turn 3 for the Goblins, so plenty of damage done there, but not enough to remove them yet. And that's how it's all positioned. So the Bruiser and the Troll Horde go into the Elementals and don't quite finish them off, but the Giant does finish off his unit of Elementals, but then has a dilemma. Does the Giant move backwards and probably get flank charged by the Rangers, or open up a flank charge for the Rangers into the Troll Bruiser? I'm not sure if it's in range, but it might be. So I decide he's just going to turn and open up the rear charge to the Earth Elementals and preserve his Troll brethren there. There's the Flaggit just hanging around in the middle. There's not much for him to do at the moment because he's the one with the Loot of Insatiable Darkness and everyone has so much crushing strength. I think he does throw some on the Giant to help him wound the Elementals on 2s though. And War Trombone. That finishes off the heavily wounded Brock Riders, but it's still not looking very healthy at this stage. There's lots of Rangers who are ready to steam into the action. Although purely on the dominate zone, it's not looking too bad because I have still got that Troll Horde alive in there. Turn 4 for the Dwarfs, so of course the rear charge into the Giant, which I was fairly happy to accept. And the Brocks going into the War Trombone, that's going to die, and the Flaggit may well get killed by the Brock Lord there as well. The other Trombone is charged by the Brock Lord over on the centre there, and something's dead, but I'm not sure what that is. So the Flaggit's dead, and the War Trombone's dead there on the right flank, leaving the Brocks to look towards the centre. And over in the middle. So the Giant is killed, of course, but I'm hoping to kill that unit next time and then turn to face the oncoming threats. And the other Trombone in the woods is killed as well. So I haven't got much left here. These may be my only surviving units, but I'm going to be able to kill those Elementals. So that's how it's looking at the end of that. And my opponent has actually reached 0 seconds on the clock at this point. But we decide to ignore that and play on because it is just a practice game. So the Goblins, those units there, the Bruiser and the Trolls, steam into the Elementals, finish them off, and then just turn to face the relevant threats. It's very, very difficult to find a good position though because there's units from the enemy on all sides at this point. And the Flaggit is still alive there as well. Turn 5 for the Dwarves. So the Rangers and the Brock Lord steam into the Bruiser in the woods, so they're going to eat him probably. And the Troll Horde get charged by the Brocks that are almost dead, and the Brock Lord who came in from the right flank of mine. So that's probably not going to end well. And what does the Stone Priest do? I think that's the Stone Priest. I think he kills off the Flaggit. And the Troll Bruiser gets comically double wand, which is nice. And the Troll Horde is dead. So turn 5 for the Goblins, and I've only got the Bruiser left, so he decides to countercharge the Brock Lord because that was the most wounded, and doesn't manage to kill it. So he's going to get flanked from all sides probably. turn 6. So my opponent probably wisely decides not to charge the Bruiser, because that would mean that failing to kill him would result in a countercharge, which could finish off one of multiple units. For example, the Brock Riders there are close to being at death's door. So he decides to move everything out of the Bruiser's charge arc and then shoot him with everything available, such as Herneus the Hunter. And Herneus actually manages to kill the Bruiser. So all the goblins are dead, and it is a dwarf triumph. So, what did we learn there, children? Well, we learned if you're going to take chaff units to block up enemy charges, then it's probably best if you actually use them for that purpose and don't leave your own valuable units in charge range. Grogger's goons were kind of thrown away needlessly. There wasn't any purpose to them really being that close to the enemy. It was just an overestimation of their toughness or an underestimation of the enemy's hitting power, really. The Moor Beasts could have been used two together to completely block up a charge lane from Brock Riders, allowing me to get the first hit in on them. Of course, it was a very difficult setup with the dominate scenario, with those woods in the middle, with most enemy units ignoring difficult terrain and most of mine being hindered by it. But I think I probably could have focused more on the flanks and worked to moving into the centre at the end of the game, getting away from that difficult terrain. And yeah, overall, not a particularly good performance, but it was nice to try out a little bit of a different list with those Moor Beasts in there to see how that went. And the Loot of Insatiable Darkness, I don't feel it's that necessary in this list. I've got so much crushing strength already. It felt like a waste of points when I'm used to having these individual characters that can run around and actually accomplish something on their own. This one relies on another unit as well. So I'm not a fan of that, so that's going to come out the list for the next game. And the next game is actually going to be quite a different list in terms of what accompanies the trolls, because you have to put the trolls in every time. They're so sweet. Trolls, the sniffs are obviously amazing, and the war trombones, so they tend to stay. But the other things will get mixed up a bit. And congratulations to the dwarves there. This is in preparation for a tournament, so considering how this game went, I probably wouldn't take this list. I think with practice, this is actually not a bad list at all, though. I think it just needs to be played better. And I think the opposing army here was quite a good matchup against me. Because the Fleabag Sniffs, they don't have a lot of joy against this army. The things you would want to be shooting at on an enemy army are generally chaff units that you could kill. But the Rangers, being stealthy, makes it very, very difficult. The Brock Riders have such high nerve, it's very difficult to kill them, as we found out, although they did horribly underperform the Sniffs in that respect as well. And things like Elementals have such high defense that you ideally don't want to be shooting at them with Sniffs. So there wasn't really a particularly juicy target for them in this game. The Trombones, in fact, any units like that, it's a bit of a struggle when you're up against an enemy that has kind of chaff shooting. For example, Fleabag Rider Sniffs would be great at taking out enemy war trombones, because it's just low nerve, mediocre defense. So of course the Dwarf Rangers would have been ideal for shooting war trombones. I don't think I put the trombones in harm's way of the Rangers though for that reason, which is why most of them were towards the right or behind my other units, so they couldn't get shot. And there was a little bit of bad luck in there as well, with the Trolls, for example, dying immediately instead of being wavered with the Dwarven Ale. Whether that would have made a difference, who knows, but it might have helped, certainly. And whether it would have still been a loss, I'm sure it would have made it a bit closer at the end there. So, time to wrap this one up, because I've got another battle report to do. The next one is going to be Goblins versus Ogres. And you can look forward to seeing that one very soon. So I'm going to disappear from your corner of the screen there. Hopefully the audio is better on this battle report as well, because I've had a fiddle around with some of the settings, because someone pointed out that there was a bit of background noise in the previous videos. So always striving to improve the quality of the output. Hopefully this has made a bit of a difference. Okay, don't forget to check out all the links in the description, all the social media shenanigans, Facebook group and whatnot. And of course, don't forget to send me all your money, because that's what it takes to make battle reports, all your money. With that, all that remains to be said is, good night out there. whatever you are.